Hey guys, Charles from Halt's Boots here, and today we're doing something a little bit different. We're actually reviewing a pair of rugby boots, and this isn't what I normally do, but I've seen tons of these on the resale market from some of the other football boot resellers in like Europe and especially the UK, so England, Ireland, Scotland, those areas there. And I just had to get a pair for myself. I was also told that they are used for football sometimes too, so I figured that was pretty cool and something I needed to try. So that's what we're doing today. We're reviewing a pair of rugby boots. Alright guys, so what we're gonna do is unbox these boots, and they're rugby boots, which is not something I normally do. I don't play rugby, I've never played American football, just regular, soccer / football. But this color really, of these boots, this color really caught my eye when I saw them. And so I decided that I had to pick these up, and they're really phenomenal. They're called the Predator XP. And this is a line I think that's been around at least since 2019, maybe 2018. I don't know how old this color was, or is rather. I looked in the size tags. Sometimes the size tags, at least on Nike boots and maybe Adidas boots, will have like a date when they were stopped being produced. And I could not find one for this boot. Unfortunately, I looked online. I didn't look super hard, I will tell you that. So I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming it's anywhere between 5 to at least 4 years old as a model, not necessarily this colorway, but I know that I saw it sold out on pretty much every website I would go to, like a back page of and it would just say sold out, sold out. So again, I don't know. I know Adidas is still making these as far as I know. Again, maybe I'm wrong. It was so hard for me to find information on this boot, and I'm sorry if I'm getting all this wrong for all of you rugby players who are hopefully watching this video. So please let me know in the comments if I'm wrong and educate me, because I know almost nothing about these boots. But overall, so far, my first impression there, these are pretty cool. They've got all these fins and whatnot on them, and we're just gonna jump into kind of the rest of the unboxing, kind of talking about these and go from there. Okay, so one thing you might notice about these boots right away is these crazy fins that are all over them, and that is called the hybrid touch system. The idea for this, I believe when I watched a review about it, is a lot of times when rugby players are playing, I think they punt the ball or kick the ball. And I know they kick the ball as well, kind of like a field goal in American football. But these are just kind of help to kind of just get more grip on the ball when you kick them and whatnot. It also feels like they're pretty cushiony as well. So I'm assuming that gives you a really good touch. And I also know that a lot of people in Ireland really love this kind of boot too. Ireland, Scotland, maybe even bits of England as well will wear this boot for regular football / soccer. And I can see why you might want to do that. It looks like it's pretty comfy. At least this plush piece here and here, it all looks pretty comfy. I bet you could get a pretty good grip on the ball this way. And that's another reason why I wanted to try these rather, is because I've seen lots of guys on the Instagram resale market just sell tons and tons of rugby boots to guys who play football. So that's one thing I wanted to really kind of test out myself and see if this is a boot that's worth playing football in. I also saw tons of different colors of these when I was scrolling through Google Images and just kind of seeing what all they make. And there's some pretty crazy colors out there, like blues and pinks and purples and oranges. And it's kind of cool to see that rugby players have the same kind of flair that football players do on the pitch. And I mean, again, I'm just assuming, so please don't batter me if that's not true. But all the colors I saw were super cool. The sole plate on these boots are pretty cool as well. It's called the Sprint Frame sole plate, and although it's not exactly like the old school F50s, this was kind of the similar sole plate we saw on some of the early Ace models. I think maybe a few Predators, like the women's, some version of women's specific football boots or colors also came in a sole plate similar to this. And if we look at the OG F50 sole plate, we can really see the resemblance there. It's got the same amount of studs in this almost exact same layout, minus this stud here in the midfoot. But it's got that same kind of deep ridges here. Although the studs aren't the same conically, and it doesn't have this plastic molding piece here from when it was molded together, it's still very similar, and I really do like that. So I'm hoping that this will produce the very similar vibes and traction that the older F50 primes had. I went with my size 9 US and tried these on. I think that I should have gone down to an 8.5, maybe even an 8. Now, I'm not really sure how rugby boots fit, so I figured going with a 9 would be safe, because usually that's what I do with Adidas boots when I don't know what size I should get. but that's definitely not the case for these. I might double sock, and I'm honestly not gonna play in any pickup games or regular games or anything crazy with these with other people. I think I'm just gonna do a few training sessions by myself, maybe kick the ball around and do some kind of like plyo work or sprinting work in these. Because this boot was actually also built for speed and power is another thing I saw they were marketed for. And the positions it was actually marketed for, let me check my note right here. It said that this boot is made for bigger backs or back rowers. I don't know, I knocked my camera there. I don't know what that means exactly. I'm assuming it's when they're in the scrum pile and it's the guys who are pushing in the back. Or like, it looked like they also had some pretty big, like mammoth sized dudes wearing these in some of the promo videos. So I'm assuming it's for like the bigger player who's gonna be doing a lot of the bulk of the work. Now, it also was called a hybrid boot because they said it's meant for bigger backs or back rowers, as well as some guys who are, I think they said, in the mid row. So not sure what that really means. I have an idea. I think it's when they're in the big scrum piles pushing back and forth. Sorry, I'm an American, and there's no real rugby in the States anywhere. There's like a lot of like niche groups, but for the most part, like I really don't know much. So again, sorry about that, but I'm just trying to give you guys my best kind of idea and kind of education as well on this boot. And the last thing I want to talk about real quick is this tongue. So it's an interesting tongue system that we kind of have seen before, but not quite. And it has a knitted upper here. So think almost like the knitted like piece that comes up on the Phantom Venoms is kind of what this material is here, and it's tied into the boot. And then you have this tongue that's free. I don't know if I really like this tongue. It didn't sit, like this tongue sits like this when you don't have the boot on, but when I put the boot on, the tongue was almost like popped out like this. So I didn't really like that. That didn't feel comfortable to me, but maybe I just didn't get my foot in all the way correctly or something like that, or maybe I just need to adjust the tongue when I put them on. So yeah, I can't really say yet about that, but I do think it's an interesting tongue design. An issue I always have with boots that have tongues is because my feet are so wide, the tongue always slides like this when it's laced up, and then my like sock is exposed on the top here. So maybe this will prevent that, and will definitely be one thing I'm looking at besides the sole plate, is just how well this tongue performs, as well as maybe these like fins here. So now I'm gonna go ahead and try these boots on either today or tomorrow and over the next week or so, kind of just try to get some touches in these with the ball, see how they perform from a football aspect, and then as well as just like a regular performance aspect from boots. Like I said, I'll be doing some plyos in them, some cutting, sprinting, maybe some jumping or something like that. And then as well as like just some kicks about with myself, or just some like just regular training sessions you do by yourself in these, just to kind of get a feel and really think about it, and if I would recommend wearing these for football and not just rugby, if that makes sense. So without that, I'm gonna leave you guys here, and we're gonna go ahead and jump into the next part of the review. All right guys, so it's been a few days. I only did 1 or 2 sessions in these boots just because I didn't have a lot of time to spend on wearing these and testing them fully, and I did not want to rock up to practice in a pair of these. So I only wore them a few times by myself. I did run them through, a little bit of footy tests, just some juggling, some shooting, nothing super crazy there. I did a lot of plyos in them, some sprinting. So I feel like I got a decent feel for them, at least an initial feel for these boots overall. And I'm kind of just gonna walk you guys through my experiences and exactly what I think of this boot. So if we talk about the sole plate here, like I said, it looks almost exactly like the older F50 Sprint frame sole plate. It's not quite the same, and it also shares the same resemblance to the Ace 16 and 17, and I want to say some of the Pure Control boots could have had the same sole plate. I'm not entirely sure because I think maybe those had Ultra Boost, but very similar. It was cool to see this sole plate again. That's why I think these boots are from 2020, maybe a little earlier, maybe a little later, but somewhere in there. Didn't have any issues. It performed well. There wasn't obviously a lot of grip because these studs, if you can see here, aren't very long and there's not very many of them, but I did like this sole plate. It was pretty neutral overall, and I had no issues in terms of my feet hurting from playing on, or from running and testing them on like a harder pack, like dirt surface. Also, I would assume these are very good for AG. I just didn't have time to test them on AG, but this sole plate like this almost screams to me AG sole plate, so I'm assuming they're gonna be totally fine on AG as well. In terms of lockdown, my feet didn't slip or slide anywhere, so I can tell you guys the lockdown is great. I was kind of double socking / wearing true socks, so that could have had a lot to do with it, but that's what I had to do, and I didn't have any issues that way. The laces, I think, provided a bit more extra support, but without them laced up, I definitely think my feet would slide around, so you're definitely gonna have to use laces for these, even though they have a half tongue, half like prime knit upper, or just knit upper rather, not prime knit. If we discuss the hybrid touch system, which is all these like fins all these fins and blades there. I don't really think it made a difference when I was hitting shots, and I didn't really hit that many, and I wasn't really hitting them that hard just because I only had one ball when I went out there, and I didn't want to constantly keep fetching my ball every time I missed. So I didn't really get like a whole lot of repetitions in a row. I really don't think it felt anything like a grip element from like the grip knit from the Phantom GX or like any rubber that's on Predators. I just don't think that it really mattered. Maybe it's different for rugby balls because I know they're a bit bigger and obviously they're more egg shaped, but I don't have a rugby ball. I've never had a rugby ball, so I can't confirm that. And I don't know how to punt the rugby ball. So at least for football, I don't think they made a difference. It was nice to have these like plush like fins on the boot. I felt like at least when I was juggling, kicking the ball up and trapping it, that it did help a bit more with cushioning. And I did feel like a better sense of touch on the ball for this boot than I have with a couple other football boots. So that was kind of nice. I do like this upper a lot. I do really rate it, but just in terms of like this hybrid touch system, I don't think it matters for kicking a ball. I really think you could go without it and just keep this plush upper as it is. However, these boots are very bulky, and that's the biggest setback for me personally in terms of just wanting to wear them when I'm playing football. I really hate when my boots look bulky. I hate looking down at my feet and you're like, wow, I have huge feet, I have huge boots. And it's a weird thing I have, but that's just one thing. I just don't think I could really play football in these. I don't think I could see myself going to practice in these. I'll probably keep them just to kind of keep them and have them, and also, you know, maybe I'll do some extra plyos and stuff in them or some sprint work in them, because they are good, I would say, like working boot, if that makes sense, not in terms of performance, but just putting the work in, running and whatnot. So yeah, it's just not something I'm gonna wear on like a football field or a football pitch, and I'm not gonna play a game in them. If we go on to fit, and I did mention that I was double socking, what I was actually doing is wearing a pair of regular black Nike crew socks, and then I had a few pairs of leftover true socks, like the ankle grip socks. And I haven't used those in, I think, 3 or 4 years, and I'm surprised I was able to find them, but I double socked in those, and I finally felt like it filled out the boot properly when I did that. Otherwise, I probably could have worn an 8.5, but I'm not even sure I could have done that because this boot just caused me a lot of pain. And just in the entire area, the outsides, usually where I get like pain and hot spots from having wide feet, were on fire. Literally, my feet hurt so bad. So I really could only, I think I wore them for maybe an hour, and 30 minutes in my feet were dying, but I wanted to get the full review done and kind of test them out fully, which I do not recommend if you're wearing boots. If they start to hurt, take them off. But you know, one thing I did have was just that there was so much pain on the outsides, and you know, the top of the foot was okay, but it was just so unbearable. I think both of my like pinky toes and that second toe right next to it were kind of going numb just from being just so compressed by this boot. It could have been I was double socking. I haven't double socked in 5 or 6 years, and you know, that could have just been causing extra pressure, but these boots also really just gripped my feet and just kind of squeezed them. Now, I've always assumed that rugby players would have bigger feet, and so you'd want to have wider boots. I'm gonna go off my experience that these are not great for wide feet. And if you are a rugby player who has wide feet, maybe don't wear these. Maybe find a different boot. Maybe they'll fit you, I don't know. But I believe these were for backs or halfbacks, or like, well, I forget what I said like a few days ago when I did the review, but just like guys who are sitting in the back of the scrum pile, I wanna say. And I just feel like those are the bigger guys. So you're gonna want boots that you can really, like, your foot can fill out and not have any pain in. And that's just a huge thing for me, is that it just did not work. Another thing as well is I mentioned before I didn't like how the tongue looks, and if you've seen in some of the B-roll, the tongue just looks absolutely disgusting, and they pop up like this. So if you see this boot, the tongue's up like that. That's exactly how it looks versus when the tongue is tucked in. And maybe it's because I have wider feet or bigger ankles or something, but they just pop up like that, and it just, I hate how Predators look when they have the tongue that sits like that. I think it's disgusting, and I hate when that pops up for me. So like when this tongue popped up for me, I just did not like it whatsoever. So, you know, it could just be me, it could be the boots, I'm not really sure. Definitely did not like that, and definitely is another reason why I don't think I would wear these in a game either. So overall, going into this boot, in terms of a football standpoint, I would not wear these. I don't think they're a great football boot. However, I'm not someone who's used to wearing rugby boots, so maybe you're someone who plays rugby and football, especially in the UK where rugby is huge, and in Australia. You know, maybe you do both, then maybe this boot would work for you. Personally, for me, it's not going to work. I do not like it in that way. In terms of performance aspect, I'd probably say this boot's like a 7.5, but if we go from a football perspective, I'm gonna go with a 5 out of 10, just in terms of football. And again, it is biased because it is a rugby boot, not a football boot, but just through my experience, that's what I'm sticking with. And that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments, is this a boot you would maybe try out with football? Do you think it needs to stay a rugby boot, or are you a rugby player? Do you like this model versus some of the other models, or are other models better than this? Because like I said, I have no clue about rugby boots. But please let me know, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next review.